George is back for one more round, baby. Today, we're going to talk about the little big history of GPUs. The GPU, or Graphics Processing Unit, is an essential component to our everyday lives. Without it, computing today would either still be very slow, or still fast, but with little to no graphics. This is because CPUs are made to handle lots of different tasks. Okay. Compare that to a GPU, the sole purpose of which is to render images. Without it, Twitter would probably look like the old dial-up message boards, with just text. Websites would still exist, but loading pictures would, again, be like the days of dial-up. The internet would be fast enough, and the computers would not be able to handle it. Also, editing videos. Forget it. Digital photography and video editing would be almost non-existent. So, how did this miracle addition to every computer's inner workings come about? In the beginning, there was nothing. There was no time or space. It is impossible for us to imagine. There was nothing because there was no space for anything to be in. Then, due to random quantum fluctuations, basically a fancy science term for chance, the universe came into being. In the barest fraction of the first second, the universe inflated from something many times smaller than an atom to about the size of a grapefruit. In other words, if the universe had initially been the size of a tennis ball, in the smallest possible amount of time, it would have become 90 billion light-years across, a mere 2 billion light-years less than the current observable universe. That is how everything started, people, GPUs, stars, everything. Without the Big Bang, the elements would not be able to form. Eventually, after everything cooled off to a mere 3033.15 Kelvin, hydrogen, and a little helium, began to form. What was it that created the other elements? How could hydrogen and helium be able to create anything else? After a while, gravity began to take effect. Since everything attracts to everything else proportional to mass and distance, clumps of hydrogen began to form. These clumps had more gravitational pull than the other, smaller amounts of hydrogen floating around. Eventually, these clumps got so dense and the gravitational pull so large that a few atoms of hydrogen would smash together hard enough to create helium. That is how stars began to form. These stars, however, would eventually die. As all the helium in a star is used up, it begins to smash the hydrogen atoms together, which requires more energy. The process continues in stars until iron, which is too heavy for stars to continue to smash and make heavier elements. When all the other elements run out, the star explodes in a supernova. The sheer amount of heat and light produced by the supernova cause the iron to fuse, sometimes more than once. The explosion creates all the other elements in the periodic table. That is how all the ingredients to make a GPU were created. But how did all those ingredients get put together? Fast forward to the modern revolution, the early version of which began around 1500, with the modern beginning in 1750. Fast forward again, though not nearly as far, and you get to 1981. That was the year that the first GPU ever was produced. It was called the monochrome display adapter. This adapter could display different colors. However, it was text-only and either green or white. At first, the GPU was a hardware-encoded addition to a computer. It was initially a feature that only IBM computers had, as IBM was the first company to produce one. Before this, graphics were handled by the CPU, a very inefficient way to show images. The first add-in GPU was the IBM 8514/A. It supported a staggering 256 colors. Mainly, the first few GPUs were just faster at drawing lines than CPUs were. ATI's Wonder series of cards were the first cards capable of supporting different resolutions and multiple monitors. The first 3D-capable GPU, as in 3D games, not like 3D movies, was the S3 Verge, released in 1995. Some cards, like the very famous 3DFX Voodoo, were 3D only, requiring a separate 2D-capable card for everyday desktop use. The next iteration 3DFX card, The Voodoo 2 was also the first card ever to feature multi-GPU support. 3DFX called it SLI, or Scanline Interleave. The GeForce 256 by NVIDIA was the first card able to do lighting effects, such as reflections, and 3D transformations separate from the CPU, increasing performance. The GeForce 3 of 2001 was the first GPU with pixel shaders. Pixel shading is a method used to render advanced graphical features, including shadows. The next massive leap in GPU innovation came in the form of NVIDIA's shiny new, and very famous, 8800 GTX. This revolutionary GPU was the first to include stream processors. These not only made the GPU ludicrously fast for the time, but it also made GPU, or general-purpose GPU, tasks possible. Just around 7 months ago, NVIDIA released their RTX 20 series of GPUs. These GPUs have hardware support for something called ray tracing. Essentially, ray tracing attempts to mimic the way light would move in an environment by calculating the path, intensity, color, coming from a virtual light source. It is remarkable how far the GPU has come. From the Big Bang creating hydrogen, which eventually turned into the silicon and gold that is used in every GPU today. GPUs have also come a long way in terms of technological advances as well. From the first days of 2 different colors of text to 3D and multi-GPU support, and finally ray tracing, the GPU has advanced a significant amount in the last 20 years or so.
Working on a laptop close to the end of a job I've been doing since 10:30. I don't believe that it's frozen again. The system has gone down, oh, down, oh, down, oh. I don't believe that it's frozen again. The system has gone down, oh. So I took it down to the help desk guy. I said, make it better or I'm gonna cry. He said, I'm sorry, your computer has died. The data can no longer be found, oh, found, oh, found, oh. He said, I'm sorry, your computer has died. The data can no longer be found, oh. To the roof with the laptop I did go. Over to the edge and I gave it a throw. And when it arrived 7 stories below, it really made a mighty fine sound, oh, sound, oh, sound, oh. When it arrived 7 stories below, it really made a mighty fine sound, oh. Well, that didn't do enough to ease my pain, so I went down to Dulles and I got on a plane, saying this is all Billy Gates' fault. I'm gonna be tracking him down, oh, down, oh, down, oh. This is all Billy Gates' fault. I'm gonna be tracking him down, oh. Touchdown in Seattle and got off the plane. Hit Starbucks to get out of the rain. Paid all of my dough for a thimble of joe full of foam and the cinnamon brown, oh, brown, oh, brown, oh. All of my dough for a thimble of joe full of foam and the cinnamon brown, oh. When the Gates found out about my plan, he packed up a bag, turned tail and ran. Megaloman took it out on the lam and hid way underground, oh, ground, oh, ground, oh. Megaloman took it out on the lam and hid way underground, oh. Well, the Gates been a-running ever since that day. Thinks he can hide, but he can't get away. When I finally find his little skinny behind, gonna kick it all over this town, oh, town, oh, town, oh. Finally find his little skinny behind, gonna kick it all over this town.
All right, I introduced to you Leonardo, and he's going to paint a picture for you guys in the way that a CPU might do it, as a series of discrete actions performed sequentially, one after the other. In 3, 2, 1. Let me speed it up. Ladies and gentlemen,
Leonardo 2.0.
When we hit this trigger on this thing, 2,100 gallons of air goes through these accumulators, out these valves, into all 1,100 of these tubes, into these tubes in which the bottom of is a paintball. Each of those paintballs will fly across 7 feet of space and in 80 milliseconds reach its target. Hopefully, when it's all said and done, it's going to paint the Mona Lisa.
GPU painting demonstration.
Yep.
In 10,
9,
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, science class is now over. Thank you.